I think this is probably the biggest constitutional crisis in Britain since Edward VIII abdicated in the 1930s, and there was a question about the future of the monarchy at that point. I think it is bigger than World War II, because even in World War II, once Winston Churchill came into power, there was a coalition government that generally agreed on what it was going to do and did so with the assent of Parliament. It is greater than the Suez crisis of 1956, even though that was perhaps the most ill-judged British war of the 20th century. It was not a question of the executive shutting down Parliament. It is greater than the Iraq War of 2003, when in fact Parliament had assented to that British intervention, no matter how judged it is. This is an attempt which is not just simply to take Britain out of the European Union, but to say that Parliament has no say whatsoever in that final decision. And that is a very, very dangerous precedent to set after hundreds of years of an unwritten constitution. Oh, I think that the impact of no deal on the economy, unless you're Boris Johnson or one of the inner circle, is quite clear. If you leave without a deal from the European Union, you will have a recession, quite likely a serious recession. And you were saying that you were willing to bear those economic consequences for the sake of isolating yourself from the European Union and indeed from much of the global economy for at least the immediate future. But what we have is a combination of an unprecedented political crisis of the executive versus Parliament with a likely economic crisis, a serious downturn to last for some time in British productivity, in British trade, in employment. And that combination of political and economic crisis is something for which the Johnson government has no plans beyond simply staying in power and ramming no deal through.